Welcome to Podcasts by Dr. Kirk Adams, where we bring you powerful conversations with leading voices in disability rights, employment, and inclusion. Our guests share their expertise, experiences, and strategies to inspire action and create a more inclusive world. If you're passionate about social justice or want to make a difference, you're in the right place. Let's dive in with your host, Dr. Kirk Adams.
And welcome everybody to another episode of the cleverly titled Podcasts by Dr. Kirk Adams. I am at Dr. Kirk Adams talking to you from my home office in sunny, breezy Seattle, Washington on a beautiful summer's day. And today my guest is a dear friend and becoming a longtime colleague, Jeremy Grandstaff. Hi, Jeremy.
Well, hi, Kirk. That was a beautiful introduction. I hope that you're having better weather in Seattle than the melting pot that is DC, where I live, with humidity. But thank you so much for having me on. It's really good to be with you. And I absolutely would consider you a longtime friend and colleague as well. So I'm honored by that.
Wonderful. Well, Jeremy stepped into a new and exciting role about 6 months ago. He is executive director of the Inspiration Foundation. And Jeremy, when we did our most of our work together, it was in that sticky melting pot of Arlington, Virginia. And it is August, and I do not miss living there one single bit. It's 76. No humidity and a breeze here in Seattle today. So in any case, I met Jeremy at a National Federation of the Blind conference when I was fairly new in my role as president and CEO of the American Foundation for the Blind. My great honor to have an opportunity to lead that fine organization, Ellen Keller's organization. And Jeremy and I sat on a bench together, and he talked to me about the consulting work he did, the organizational development work that he greatly enjoyed. Asked me to consider bringing him on as a resource should I need OD, strategic planning, executive coaching help. And I did engage Jeremy, and we accomplished some wonderful things together. And fast forwarding, 4 years ago, I left the American Foundation for the Blind. Jeremy and I have kept in good cadence of contact. And I had the opportunity to introduce him to a gentleman named Isaac Shapiro. Isaac is a partner in a company called Clean Logic, which Jeremy can tell us more about. But Isaac's a sighted dude. His mom is blind. He grew up with a blind mother. And he is an entrepreneurial cat. He started a company importing body care products with a distribution center near Philadelphia. And last I knew, he employed over 30 blind individuals in that warehouse and distribution setting. He's onshoring his manufacturing from China, has a goal of hiring 90 more people with disabilities. So he is one of those people who is out there doing things and not just talking about supercharging your bottom line through disability inclusion, but actually doing it, hiring people with disabilities and changing lives. And in honor and inspiration from his mother, he created the Inspiration Foundation. And I've been involved for several years with the foundation in that they give grants to nonprofits in the blindness field who traditionally have been members of an organization called Vision Serve Alliance. But in any case, they're a nonprofit serving people who are blind. And Isaac and I share a passion for creating employment opportunities for people who are blind. So his grant making has focused around supporting the use of technology by these nonprofits in supporting their employment-driven programs. So we have lots of intersections in life. Isaac came to see me maybe in the first month or two when I was at the American Foundation for the Blind, came to the New York offices. He'd had a history with AFB previous, introduced himself, gave me some of his products with Braille labeling, which of course warmed my heart toward Isaac. Anyone who hands me a consumer product with Braille on it gets a star in their chart with me. And then we've also kept in touch. As I said, I've been a little bit involved in supporting the foundation by being on the grant review committee. And then when I see where 2 and 2 can make 5 or more, I love to make those connections. So when Isaac was seeking an executive director, I was pleased to suggest that he talk to Jeremy Grandstaff and consider him for that role. And so here we are. I'm pretty much done talking now. I would like Jeremy, if you could, talk to us a little bit about your lived experience with blindness, why this work is so meaningful to you, where you, where the organization was at when you stepped into your new leadership role, and that's a newly created role too. So you have a wonderful lifetime opportunity to shape your own role, which is cool. And where as our mutual dear friend Sean Callaghan would say, from Unblinded, he would say, "Where have you been? Where are you now? Where are you going? What's working for you? What are your challenges?" So there you have it.
Well, what a tee up. First of all, thank you for that, Kirk. It's, as I said before, it's really an honor to be with you. I have admired your work. Actually, you didn't know this, but back when you worked for the lighthouses, and I was kind of following you there, and then you went into AFB, and I thought, here's my chance, right, to build a relationship with you. So it's been really exciting. I think we've known each other for maybe 7 or 8 years now. So
yep.
Very good to know you. I'll start with me, right? And kind of talking about some of my lived experience. I grew up in a little town called Marengo, Ohio. I was the first of 4 kids. 3 of us cannot see. The other, my sister can. And when I was first born, I think I was like 2 years old. My parents had they were told they needed someone from the county to come out and assess me. And so that person came out, Kirk, at the age of 2 and told my parents that I would probably be best served by being put into an institution. And I'm so fortunate that my father, God rest his soul, he just died 4 months ago. The way the story was told to me, he basically gave them 2 minutes to get off his property and to never come back. Right?
Nice
You got to
work.
kind of
Nice work,
love
Dad.
that. Yes. And so there was this attitude that my parents had that was, nothing is off limits. You're going to have to figure out how to do it. No is never an answer that is acceptable. And we'll give you feedback, but you're going to have to solve your own problems. And what I find fascinating about that is that's exactly what we want to see from our workforce, right? Is that they are problem solving and that they are bringing ingenuity and creative problem solving into any teams that we develop. So I didn't know that at the time, right? That I was being taught those skills. I remember getting very frustrated one time and slamming down a pitchfork because I didn't, like my dad telling me, figure it out. And I distinctly remember him saying, well, you can keep slamming that pitchfork down and make me have to buy another one, or you can figure out how to solve the problem, right? And so I was the first to come back to my school. At the time, they called it mainstreaming. I think they call it integrated schooling now.
Okay, so did you go to school for blind children or not?
So I went to the school for the blind until I was in 5th grade.
5th, okay.
Yep. I even had a teacher, never forget you, Mrs. Murphy, who said I'd never make it in a public school. Sent her a graduation card, by the way, when I graduated. Nice. But I came back up to public school, and I remember being in 6th grade and coming home from school on the bus and calling the publishing companies because I didn't have books. And I'm like this 12-year-old kid arguing for what I need in 1988 to be able to read a book, right? And back then we had very little options in what that could be. It was Braille
Right.
or tape. So fast forward, I graduated high school. I went to Bowling Green State University and got my degree in a bachelor's degree in information systems and international business. And I started working for IBM, managing
So
call center.
information. What was kind of give us the layman's view of what information systems meant? I guess that was when in the
Think
90s.
about it as the people who go into an organization and do analysis of all of their information systems and then tell them what they need to do to fix all their problems.
Okay.
Ironic,
This
by the
isn't
way.
computer. This is computerized.
Computers. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And the irony in that, by the way, is most of the time back then, that information gathering, it was very much a this is what we believe you need to do type of thing. There was really no bringing the client with you in those conversations, right? We're talking late night.
What's the prescription?
That's right.
Okay.
And so I started working for IBM, got a job as a call center employee, and then ended up managing a team of 55 when I was 26 years old. And I have to tell you, Kirk, that was intimidating. I was the only blind person in the entire facility, right? But what it did is it gave me the opportunity to really practice what was going to take a team to the next level. So IBM actually lost the account that I worked on, and like 6,000 other people, I got laid off. And at the time, I was getting my master's in organization development, and I fell in love with this concept that is very much applicable to what we say in the disability community: nothing for us without us. And that's the basic concept of organization development. How do you design, plan, collaborate in a way that brings everybody into the equation that has the lived experience that you need or that you're serving? And so I fell in love with it. I started my company. That takes me up to you.
Yeah.
And how I met you. And I've done some work for small businesses since then. And when Isaac and you, well, I distinctly remember when you came to me and said, you should think about applying for this. I remember taking this step back in my life and saying, do I actually want to work in disability employment? Is that where I want to be? And I think what made me say that, Kirk, is that there are times, I think, as blind people where we feel we have to work in the blindness field. That there's not another option for us. And I wanted to make sure that if I made this commitment, I was all in. I actually think you and I had a conversation around this, right? Yeah. That this is not going to be something where I can just do it and kind of, oh yeah, this is kind of what I do. It's all in or not.
Well, I remember you asking me, why aren't you applying for it? You said, because I don't want to do all that hard work that it's going to take to build an organization and create a new role and build a new board and have a high-performing board and put in processes. I've done that a couple of times, and I'm glad there are enthusiastic, impassion-driven, talented people such as yourself to do that work.
That's such a compliment coming from you, Kirk. And I'll tell you what made me say yes. Is fascinating to me that this is where it was. In the past 7 years that I stopped working for myself, I have been told by one employer that after 3 years and them getting to know me, I would never, ever be as competent as a person that could see.
Wow.
And they said it on video, and they said it in a way that was completely like illegal, if you want to get technical, right? But I chose to just get another job and move on. And then The next employer that I had at one point, as we were separating, said, I want you to understand that you are not the top person that I feel I need to pay because you can always just go on disability.
Wow.
And I thought, I don't ever want people to have to hear those things. Never in a million years. And I was really just so passionate about this idea that if we're going to change the world, we need to look at what's happened over the last 30 years when it comes to disability employment. And we need to recognize where we have progressed and where we can do better. And I thought, what better opportunity to just sink my teeth in and see how I can play a role in that and what that looks like.
Yeah.
So that's how I got here. And that's why I said yes. Ironically, by the way, I was in the job for 2 weeks, and Isaac and I were talking, and we were getting ready for what is our biggest signature event in February of this past year. I had literally been in the job for 2 weeks, and he said, do you need help writing your speech? And Kirk, I hadn't really thought about it, right? This idea that, and he goes, well, as the executive director, we should probably have you set a vision for where we're heading. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I really should do that. One of my best speeches I've ever given in my life, and I have to tell you, being vulnerable in this particular setting, it was the first speech that I've ever given that I wrote out, completely wrote it out. And I don't usually have to do that, right? But this was I need to wow them and it needs to be good. The way it was explained to me is I made some people cry, some people smile, some people laugh, and others just got their checkbooks out. And that's okay too.
Absolutely right.
So what do we do? I think you wanted me to talk about.
Well, yeah, and let's just clarify. So you have not been in an executive director or CEO role of a nonprofit before. So this is your first venture. You've worked with nonprofits, you've consulted with them, but this is your first top paid staff position with a nonprofit.
So the way I'll answer that is most of the time I was the one advising the top paid person, right? And in order to do that, I was schooled by a lot of EDs very early in my career who did it well. But until this position, I was always the second in charge.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
I just wanted, I was pretty sure that was true, but I'm somewhere in this mix of what you're telling me. I'd love to hear your impressions after 6 months of a first time ED of things you've come to realize or appreciate or understand in your new role. So that would be fascinating to me.
Do you know how many people I've asked that question to? It's so interesting. Like, I think that's actually part of the answer of the question. Right. I spent 25 years of my career telling people like me what to do and how they could do it and how they could tell yourself better. And so far, I am proud to say I was about 85 to 90% right.
Good.
Right. So, and I think part of it is just learning and being in the moment. Right.
So let's set a baseline. Why don't we tell folks what the Inspiration Foundation is?
Yeah, and then we'll come back to that.
A little bit of the history. Like I said, what's the narrative arc of the foundation?
Of course,
past, present, future.
So excellent. So the foundation has actually been around for 20 years, as you said. Isaac and Mike, who are co-CEOs of Clean Logic, started the company about 20 years, or started the foundation about 20 years ago. It was started because of B. Shapiro, who was Isaac's mom, or who is Isaac's mom, and actually serves on our board today. And I think when the whole thing came up, I'm pretty sure it was around how can we get more technology into training centers that's going to help them be able to train people to be more qualified candidates. And so I like that's where our basis started. So when I came on board, my charge was to build a strong and diverse organization, build the board, make sure we've got a board that can help us expand, and then to launch what we're calling our Inspiration Seal membership program, membership and education program, as far as looking at how can we not just target building a stronger pipeline of candidates, but also building a stronger pipeline of companies who are ready to hire and promote candidates with disabilities, right? Or people with disabilities. In my first year, or in my first 6 months, we expanded our grants program by $12,000 that we were giving this year. And keep in mind, by the way, that program had already started for this year before I started, right? So we were able to secure a little bit of extra funding to end up giving 10 grants to various training organizations. And those are all up on our website, inspirationfoundation.org. We have launched our steering committee for the SEAL education and membership program. We're doing a really good job, Kirk, of framing that program with help from people with disabilities and corporate at the same time, kind of coming together and saying, what do we need on both sides of the equation? And what does that look like? And I'm also proud to tell you, sir, that we have revised the way that we're doing Dining in the Dark events. So we now are doing what's called the Dining in the Dark and Executive Roundtable, basically where it's education before we do the experiential dinner. I like to say Jeremy style with some process-oriented, questions and debriefing during the dinner. And then we come back the next day and we work directly with executives on how can they actually start implementing what they've learned on day one. Right.
So let's pause and dig into two things a little deeper. The SEAL.
Yes, please.
And I know I've talked with Isaac about the SEAL, and my understanding is Isaac wants a way to drive others to do what he has been doing and is doing, and that is to understand that people with disabilities can be an integrally valuable part of a workforce, and to encourage and equip other employers to emulate what Clean Logic has done and hire significant numbers of people with disabilities. So I know it's evolving, but if you could talk a little bit more about the concept of the Inspiration Foundation SEAL.
Absolutely, 100%. And I do want to say, talk to me in a month, and this may actually change a little bit. And
sure,
and that's driven by the team, right?
I understand it's being created.
Yep. So the concept of the SEAL, kind of think about the women-owned business SEAL, or I always forget their name, but they're very big on social impact businesses. The B Corp SEAL. And so the concept is Isaac wanted to look at developing a SEAL that would be able to be placed on your packaging when you're a manufacturer. And so you can say, by looking at the SEAL, we are promoting and hiring people with disabilities.
Okay.
Right? That's the concept. Now, what we're realizing as we're designing this is we want the SEAL to have value, and we want it to be like, it's not so much about the SEAL being on a package. It's the concepts that are behind the SEAL and being able to help organizations be able to achieve those. So a lot of this is going to be resource oriented, education driven, different workshops and so forth. And I think what's interesting about this is there are other organizations that are doing some of this very well, right? And so our focus is really on retail and supply chain type companies that are small to medium sized, and then your bigger box retail organizations, which we have lots of good relationships in. And in our meetings that we've had with National Organization of Disability and Disability In, we're really doing a good job of like not duplicating, but figuring out how to collaborate with. I see this as there are enough businesses who could use this help that we all need to start operating in a collaborative fashion. Right.
Wonderful.
And yeah.
And we know research shows that consumers, given a choice, if they can purchase products and services from companies that do social good in the world, they would rather do that than not. So
that's right.
Fabulous.
And I do, by the way, I just want to clarify the seal, more for when Isaac listens to this, the seal will definitely be there on packaging, but we want to make sure that it's not just being given out like, oh, here you go. Just say, oh, good, you're going to put that on. We really want to make sure companies are doing this.
It's not just a participation ribbon. Actually, have to meet some criteria.
That's right. There are criteria that we're developing, and actually, I will say, our design team has done a really good job of even bringing other models that we can, build off of and really put some strong criteria together. So we're starting to pilot that a little bit, and we should have more on that probably late this year or early next year.
Okay. Now let's talk about dining in the dark. So
yes, sir.
I was at the American Foundation for the Blind, had been there, I don't know, quite a bit less than a year. And a community group that doesn't need to be named contacted us and said, we want to raise money for the American Foundation for the Blind, and we want to put on a dining in the dark event. We want you to publicize it. And it was like a hand grenade was thrown in the middle of the conference table during our executive staff meeting. As
why do you say that? I'm curious.
There were strong reactions about dining in the dark, and of course, well, we had, I'll just say, a sighted woman who was in charge of fundraising said, "These people want to raise us money. Yay, verily, let's support them." And a blind person who's in the advocacy role said, "It's terrible." Destructive, counterproductive, makes people scared of blindness, makes people think blind people are pathetic and helpless, can't touch it, we're against it. So being a research organization, we said, well, let's research this. So we actually found a dissertation written by Dr. Ariel Silverman, who is now the head of research at AFB. When she was a student at the University of Washington, she did her dissertation on disability simulation experiences. So spend a day in a wheelchair, spend a day on crutches, spend the day with earplugs in, spend the day on a blindfold, eat a spaghetti dinner with green salad and dressing with the blindfold on, even though you're fully sighted, you've never done that before. And not surprisingly, the results were if you throw a person without an impairment and impose an impairment on them and throw them into a situation that they're not prepared for or trained for, it will have negative consequences. They will think there's nothing that could be worse than being blind. There's nothing that could be worse than being using a wheelchair. It's scary. It's disorienting. I can't function. How can blind people aren't able to do common everyday tasks because I wasn't able to when I was under blindfold. Mm-hmm. And then the research shows if it is part of a balanced breakfast, if you are educating people, giving them context, talking to them about tools, techniques, training, using it as part of a curriculum of teaching, then it can be a value add. So I know you're hinting at that direction. I know Inspiration Foundation has conducted some very well-attended, financially very successful dining in the dark events in conjunction with some of the largest companies in the country. Mm-hmm. And I know that you are very, very attuned to the dangers and promise of disability simulation events. So would love to hear you talk a little bit more about that, how you brought that sensibility into the space and what your experience has been so far.
Well, I appreciate you asking that question. It's so nicely. And by the way, I love Dr. Silverman's stuff. So ironically, I actually read that before I took the job. I went and
Good for
read
you.
her dissertation because I knew that that was our big signature event. I was actually kind of nervous. I'm a little bit more vulnerable, I think, than I'm supposed to be. So you can always cut these out, Kirk. But I I was worried before I even went to the event that this is what we were creating, right? And I wanted to make sure that if we did it in a respectful and educational way, right? So one of the things that we've actually done is we have a team of people coming together to plan. You know, I love my planning teams, right? So we've got a team of people that are coming together that are planning our 2027 Dining Dark and Executive Roundtable event. And what I found fascinating is even the people that didn't have disabilities were so committed to making sure that we are putting some type of an educational type of piece around it. Now, I like to jokingly say we're going to OD the dinner, which is typical of Jeremy to do in any situation anyway, Kirk. Um, but some things that I'm actually thinking about is like before they even, so obviously there's an education component before the dinner and one the next day after, right? And that's how we're kind of sandwiching it with education.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some of the other things that I'm really intrigued to do is before they even put the blindfolds on, have a brief conversation at your table on what scares you about this experience, or
Mm-hmm.
what are you not sure you're going to be able to do. And then do the experience and actually talk about what was one thing that you could do that you didn't think you're going to be able to do. Like, what was one aha moment where you said, you know what, this got easier as I did XYZ, and really give them an opportunity to talk about it. And I think the other key piece, especially during the dinner, right? Because there's a whole educational before and after type of thing, before and after the next day. But it's me actually being able to talk about, here are the tools that I used as we were going through this experience tonight that you may not have known you even had. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why training is so critical for people who lose their vision or who have other ability challenges, whether they're apparent or non-apparent. And being able to really take it back to training, going for independence and making sure that people have that. So that's just some things that we're toying around right now
Mm-hmm.
in our team meetings. But one of the things that is really important to me is to really be very cautious on how we talk about this. And so anytime we say dining in the dark, it's and executive roundtable.
Yeah. Good.
Right? Because it's got to have that educational component. One of the other things that we're actually exploring too, I was just working on this today, is so this is our big signature event, but how do we bring this to your company in a way that's going to create those educational opportunities, right? You have many companies who will do, an annual employee dinner. Is this an opportunity to make that a different experience, right? And what that looks like. So we're still exploring it. And I love, like, as we grow as an organization, one of the things that we're looking at is there's been such a focus for our organization in blind and low vision, but I also, like, we're talking about an overall goal of increasing the employment rate of people with disabilities by 10% in 5 years. That's our main goal, by the way, Kirk. Very aggressive. It's an aggressive goal, but it's like, it is about getting more people hired. It's also about looking at how do we help the other bigger communities, neurodiverse communities, for example, or hard of hearing. What can we learn from each, the blind community, the neurodiverse community, the hard of hearing, that is going to work across all three? And then what's unique, right? So what I love about my job is to bring the right people together and make sure that they have the resources that they need to be able to build those double pipelines like I talked about in the beginning.
Right. So my understanding is Inspiration Foundation addressing both the supply side and the demand side. So you're
That's
supporting
right.
through grants, supporting the nonprofits that are out in the community, training and supporting people with disabilities as they move toward employment, supporting those programs, and at the same time, creating the demand pull by working with companies to encourage them, but also provide them with the tools they need to hire more people with disabilities. The seal is a visible manifestation of those companies' readiness and commitment to hiring people with disabilities. They're meeting certain criteria to earn the seal.
Yeah.
And you are there to make all of this happen. So in our last few minutes, this is where I'm really interested. Now that you're on the other side of the table, Mr. Consultant, and you have that responsibility. What are some insights? What are some things that you've realized or have been affirmed for you that, oh gosh, I was always right about this one, or this is something I might have missed? Just any insights you might have in our last couple minutes would be great.
I appreciate this question so much because there were two things that I remember distinctly having a conversation about. And it was actually with my sister and my little brother, who, Corey, who is the vice principal at the School for the Blind in Washington. And my
Right.
sister is actually, she's a senior HR member for American College of Cardiology. And I remember before I even took the job, the two of them, we were all down at my mom and dad's because my dad was sick at the time. And the two of them took me in a room and sat down and they said, we need you to understand that the minute that you say yes, you are no longer Jeremy Grandstaff. You're Jeremy Grandstaff, who's the executive director of a foundation. And everything you say is going to be from that lens. Every time you open your mouth, you're going to be talking as the ED of an organization. No matter how much you're on your little Facebook over there posting, you are setting a tone. And I was so glad that they did that because it wasn't something I hadn't thought about, but it was really neat to have it put so bluntly to me that this was going to be a change in how I had to show up on a daily basis. I always have to be even killed. I have to balance, when do I fight the battle versus when do I actually bring people together to address the challenge, right?
Yeah.
And so having that lens as I started the job was so critical. And it really made me also say, okay, I've been doing this for 25 years. I was trained by some great people, but what do I not know? Right. And so ironically, I went and reread your dissertation. You didn't know that.
Well, thank you.
Went and reread yours. I read Dr. Silverman's. I also read Joan Gary's
Oh yeah.
something concept of a nonprofit, right?
Yeah,
I forget the
she
name of
has
it.
like nonprofits are messy, I think is her
Something like
podcast.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was such a great most of it was refresher for me, right? But one of the things that she put really well is the board ED relationship. And what does that look like? And for me, I'm stepping into an organization that's been around for 20 years, right? And so, and my job is to grow it and expand it, which means, and this is the other thing that I really learned and I've gotten a lot better at doing, is to say, let's slow down for a second, right? Not that I didn't think things through holistically. Like that's always been my mantra, right? I'm very much about how can we look at all sides of an issue, right? So I didn't have that challenge. But what I did have to learn is to say, I know you want to do this right now, but let's slow down for a minute and talk it through first.
Yeah.
Let's try to understand it. Let's make sure that what we're doing is going to be perceived in the way we want it to. And the best example I can think of this, Kirk, that is so real, and I'm kind of curious to see how this resonates with you. When I gave that first speech, there were 192 people from several different companies, all top executives. And I remember showing up to give that speech 2 hours early. And, they're doing the final setup and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And Isaac is watching me and he comes up and he's like, why are you doing what you're doing? What I was doing is I was walking, because I don't have Ozzy anymore. He retired, right? So okay. I was walking with my cane from my table to the podium. And then back to my table.
I always do that. Yep.
Right? And he goes, I don't understand. He's like, I can just take you up there. And I was like, I totally appreciate where you're coming from. But this is my first speech to this group of people, and I need them. And he was introducing me as well from the podium, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I need them to see me walk up those steps.
That's right.
Take the mic from you, escort you down off the steps, and then come back up. And he's like, why? And because I'm about to tell them that hiring someone with a disability is going to improve their bottom line. And if they see you walking me up there, then that undermines that concept. And I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think I fully understood mm-hmm. that public perception role that I have as an ED. And I got to tell you, Kirk, if I had known that 20 years ago and acted like that as a CEO, I think that would have opened more doors for me.
Yeah, it's executive presence, right?
Yeah.
Executive presence. So
very interesting.
One thing I've started doing, as I've started doing more public speaking, is when I am at the podium and I'm about to speak, I'm collapsing my cane. I say, I'm Dr. Kirk Adams, To meet my accessibility needs today, I use an app on my iPhone with the built-in screen reader voiceover to schedule a ride share. And then I use my long white cane and my orientation and mobility skills to get up to the room and to get to the podium. And I am going to be using some notes on a Braille tablet with a refreshable Braille display. I just say that, and it's really to just start, and these are mostly in corporate settings, just start normalizing that people with impairments, in order to fit with the environment and be effective, we use tools and we use training, we use techniques. I just want to start normalizing these conversations in those rooms. So that's one thing I'll gift to you if you want to adopt that.
Oh, I totally am going to borrow that. Absolutely, 100%. And I think that also naturally feeds into then the next part of that speech for me, especially at our Dining in the Dark and Executive Roundtable, right? Where it's, now let me tell you what training we are funding and why that's important and why you want to be, making sure your employees are tapping into that as well.
That's right.
So
that's right. So time has flown by, as it always does when you and I get on a call together. So how can people get involved? What would you like the listeners of this fine podcast to do in order to support your good work?
Well, I appreciate that. First of all, if you are affiliated with, supporting, taking lessons from, being trained by, or just a member of an organization that's doing training, especially on assistive technology and employment outcomes. Our grants program is a good place for you to plug into. And so that's on our website as well. If you are a corporate executive or you are the owner of a small to medium-sized business, checking out some of the stuff that we're doing with the Inspiration Seal, or having a conversation with me about what you need to increase the hiring and promoting of people with disabilities, that's a conversation I'd love to have. And of course, Kirk, for anybody who needs to make that big charitable donation, we will absolutely help you do that as well. And
That's right.
And I think, I also see our Dining in the Dark and Executive Roundtables is very much about, corporate coming together and really sponsoring and getting educated on how we can be doing this better. So I encourage everyone, check. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the Jeremy Grandstaff out of DC. Or you can go to our website, inspirationfoundation.org, and everything has literally been updated in the last week, Kirk. So I'm pretty proud of that.
I'll go take a gander.
I appreciate that very much.
So as an executive director of a nonprofit, now you have to be at your desk with your phone on and email open until close of business on December 31st, so you can get that mythical last-minute tax-deductible donation that someone desperately needs to make.
That's right.
People would say, "Why are you still here on December 31st?" I said, "So someone may be calling. They need to make that big gift."
That's right.
In any case, reach out to Jeremy, inspirationfoundation.org. And as for me, you can reach me on my website, which is DR for Doctor, drkirkadams.com. Sign up for my monthly newsletter. And there's a link to my newly released business book, The Disability Dividend, Supercharge Your Bottom Line Through Disability Inclusion. So why don't you buy a copy for yourself and one of your business associates? And sign up for the newsletter. Reach out to me, reach out to Jeremy. If you want to talk large, small, medium, immediate, future, anything to do with creating opportunities for people with disabilities to thrive in employment, get in touch with either or both of us, please. And we'll talk to you next time. Yes?
Before you end, I don't know if you know this or not, but I actually just co-authored a book that was released a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Called The Employee Experience Casebook.
All right.
55 cases to foster employee experience discussions. And a lot of these cases are talking about judgments made by people about people with disabilities and really helping to do those. So I completely forgot that until you just said your book.
Say it again. Say the title again.
It's called The Employee Experience Casebook, and it's on Amazon. I'll make sure that you have the link. And I look forward to reading your book as well, because that is totally relevant to what I'm doing, and I'm sure makes the business case for what we're
absolutely.
doing.
And I think Isaac Shapiro is called out in that book, so you might tell Isaac to rush out and buy a copy and look for his name.
I will absolutely do that, and I look forward to continuing to partner with you and collaborate with you. It's just such an honor. So thank you.
Absolutely. We'll talk again very soon. I will take a look at the revamped website, and everyone who's listening, we'll catch you next time on another episode of Podcast by Dr. Kirk Adams.
Thank you for listening to Podcasts by Dr. Kirk Adams. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, share, or leave a review at www.drkirkadams.com. Together, we can amplify these voices and create positive change. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep making an impact.